everything that you're about to witness. Get up, come out and try to get this. This is all a part of my sickness. But listen up, cause you're about to miss this. Everything that you're about to witness. Get up, come out and try to get this. And this is all a part of my sickness.
Hello and welcome to Crack the Cred, the show that takes the mystery out of cracking passwords or finding ways around them. I'm your host, Dana Epp, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about recovering secure wireless passwords. Now, on the internet, there is tons of resources that explain how you can go and crack web passwords or find ways to crack an existing wireless infrastructure. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. No, today we're going to talk about how you can go and get into some of the hardest or most secure wireless endpoints by simply getting access to the person's PC. So think about it for a moment. How many people do you know that come and visit you and you're hanging out in your favorite coffee shop, or you're at the airport, or maybe you're visiting at someone's organization and they leave their laptop unlocked and they just walk away for a couple of minutes? That is one of the most interesting attack vectors that you can use to your gain. More importantly, if you remember back in episode, I think it was 104, we showed you how you could get into a Windows laptop by simply using something like Dart. Well, the reality is here that we could use that to our advantage if we ever needed to get into a person's organization. Of course, doing this officially and properly, not evil, just curious here. But the reality is that it's not that hard because the passwords are stored on the system. So if we have a way to get access to it, well, the game could be over. Why do we have to worry about trying to crack a wireless network if we could just read the password? So we're gonna do that today. And we're gonna do that using a couple of different tools. The first one I want to introduce you to is something called Cred. Cred is a very simple but very powerful set of tools that allows you to do tons of different things. Everything from cracking passwords to stealing passwords that may be stored on the system in a cached manner. And the tool that we're going to talk about today within Cred is simply from the Decoders tab, which is wireless passwords. Yep, it's that easy. All you need to do is simply go zip over to the Decoders tab, click on wireless passwords, press the plus button, wait a few seconds, and there you go. There's every single wireless password that has been stored on that system. So it doesn't matter if it's a web password or a WPA2 password. If there's a wireless password that's sitting there, you have access to it. Now, the interesting thing with Cred is it has a drawback. And the biggest drawback with using Cred is that a lot of antivirus and anti-malware tools see it as hostile code, which means that you can't easily install it or run it. More importantly, it's a little more difficult if you want to very, very quickly run it. Now you could take advantage of using some of the USB auto run tools, which won't work in Windows 7 these days, or the packagers, so allows us to run standalone on those devices. But it's sometimes not that easy. And a while back, I realized that it wouldn't be very interesting if we had just a simple tool that could sit on the USB, maybe a command line tool that could simply run and dump everything. Well, I built that a while ago. It's called WLAN Password Dumper, and all it simply does is you run the command and it will show you every single SSID that has been stored and saved on the Windows system. Now, if you run it in an unauthenticated context, or sort of more important, in an unadministrative context, it's not gonna actually show you the passwords because those passwords are actually stored in a secured manner. Now, because Cred always runs as administrator, you're always gonna have access to it. But what's interesting is with the WLAN Password Dumper I built, it's actually easy to show all the SSIDs even as a standard user. And if you elevate, you actually can have full access to all those passwords. And it's really simple. Simply just run WLAN Password Dumper exe, and there you go. When you're not an administrator, the password's gonna say, you must run elevated to see this. However, it will give you a listing of all the different SSIDs, and you probably could find, since most organizations store their SSIDs in a way that allows you to recognize who they are. So when it says something like Bank X Wi-Fi, probably an interesting place to take a look at. Now, we run that in an administrative context. Boom, there's all the passwords. So why worry about cracking it if we can just take it right off the system? So imagine, take that little tiny executable, put it on a USB stick, your adversary leaves for a moment, you go pop it into the target system, and the next thing you know, you have all of their sensitive passwords to all of their highly sensitive wireless environments. Well, that's a bad thing. Now, what can we do to defend against this? Well, honestly, don't save wireless networks much. Now, the whole point and how this works and why it works so efficiently is because it's trying to make your life easier. We're trumping security with usability. And what it does is it always stores those passwords to all those different networks. And well, we all do it. We just want to be able to open it up and get logged in. But if you have sensitive environments, it might make sense to forget the network whenever you can. In other words, that will clear the cache and make it so it's not easily accessible. More importantly, as I've been mentioning in almost every episode where we talk about wireless devices, or more importantly for mobile devices, is you gotta make sure you encrypt that sucker and you lock it down. So we use BitLocker so that you can't just get access to these devices. And we also only run with standard user. So in the case of, if I was to do something stupid like leave my machine and someone else could run code on it, they'd be running it as a standard user. Now, when you install a Windows environment, even typically these days in Windows 7 or even in Windows 8 these days, what you're noticing is that what your first user that's being installed is a limited administrative user. So it doesn't immediately have administrative credentials, but it is just simply easy to run something elevated. It'll prompt you and you just hit OK and it allows you in to run that code. But if you run a standard user, it's gonna force them to have to know a password before you'll get access to that type of stuff. So you should always be running a standard user whenever you can. So there you have it. That's all it takes. Now, you interested in having this tool? No problem. Follow me on Twitter and send me a direct message and ask me for it, and I'll send you a link so that you can download it. It's a free tool. Use it properly, use it safely, but if you need to get the wireless passwords for higher level to the secured wireless, this is the way to do it.